Hi, everyone. My name is Gonzalo Casals. I'm the Commissioner of Cultural Affairs for the City of New York. And today with me, Shirley Levy, my colleague and Chief of Staff of the agency. Shirley also oversees one of my favorite programs in the agency, which is the Public Artist in Residency. Shirley, can you tell us a little bit about, what it means to be a public artist in residency and how the program works?
Yes. Before I go into any details about the actual program, we have to give credit to the godmother of all municipal artists in residence, which is Merle Latterman Ukeles. She began her residency with the Department of Sanitation in 1977, and she is still in residence there to this day. So we owe a lot of what we're doing today to her, and we thank her for setting our course. The PAIR program in its current iteration, or modern iteration, began in 2015 under your predecessor, Tom Finkelpearl. It was a program co-created by myself and my then colleague, Dia Vidge. And it began on a simple premise that artists are creative problem solvers, and that we as city workers need artists to bring their creative ideas and their different perspectives to our work to help us think critically and creatively and differently about how we can serve our constituents. And the flip side is also true, that we wanted to create space for artists, new spaces to develop their work and have their practice evolve. So we're at that really interesting moment right now for this conversation, because we're moving from research to implementation. So I think today you're going to hear a little bit about works that are starting to emerge in the public and a few that are still in the incubation research phase.
So, and we're gonna have a conversation with two of the artists, Amanda and Yazmany. You wanna tell us a little bit about, where they doing the residencies and a little bit about them?
Amanda Phingbodhipakkiya is working with the Commission on Human Rights. She responded to the call from the Commission to address the idea of chosen family, very broadly defined. Yazmany, I think, comes from a completely different place. He's more social practice based within an agency that's just at the beginning. So this is not about trying to break through systems that have been, archaically problematic, but really to question from the beginning, what is this agency supposed to be doing, and how can it best serve the city residents from the very beginning?
Let's go and talk to the artists. Thank you. So Yazmany, I'm very excited, and I look forward to see your work as part of the residency. You want to tell us a little bit, what moved you to apply for a program like this? How did you pick, the agency that you are collaborating with?
Yeah, well, my practice as an artist is really social practice. And so the nature of applying for the PAIR program, first of all, I think Merle Ukeles Lederman is an incredible pioneering human being. I think her work in the sanitation department, notionally, when I think about her showing up and meeting people and giving them her hand and doing that with all of the sanitation workers of New York City, to me, that as a human being who is in the world, it moves me to tears to think about somebody bringing dignity and care to people. And so when I think about her turning a garbage truck into a mirror thing where people could see themselves in their garbage, like there's metaphors and beauty in that I feel is really rich. And so when I thought about, the Public Artists in Residence program, here are the different options. The work that I do in general is about engagement. Engagement is the beginning of my practice. How do I find myself and the meaning for my life in my relationship to other people? And so when I thought about the Commission of Civic Engagement, I thought how beautiful that it has just been made. It's 1.5 years old. It was created by a referendum, which I think is really important and special. And because it's new, being as in my role as an artist, I am there really thinking with them about what are the possibilities for what this can become. Because being at the very beginning of this process of creating a storytelling tradition, of building the work of the commission, I'm really invested and care deeply, not just about the way things look, because I think beauty and joy are a critical aspect of building sustainable work, but really thinking through how is it that beauty and that joy shows up in all of the processes, the policies, the aspects of the work that really go far beyond what we think of as quote unquote art.
When you all apply for this project, you didn't know that, the world was going to come to an end, right? And, the city was going to come to a halt. And you just keep talking about engagement in a moment that engaging, right? Socially engaging is so hard. How is that affecting your job, your work? How
Yeah.
works?
On a personal note, I have to say that I'm a very physical person. I'm a person who's physically in the world, bouncing around and engaging and physically moving with people. It's a huge part of the way that I've developed my practice. I have to say that in my process of becoming a public artist in residence with the city of New York, it has felt a little bit at moments like I am the artist in residence of this little room that I am in my apartment, because I actually haven't met anyone that I work with in the city in person. Not one person have I met. And so that really does change the practice of meeting and getting to know each other. And so oftentimes when communities invite me to participate, I show up and I put people in a circle and I begin to move them in their bodies to think about what is the information that lives here and in the heart that is physicalized, that transforms our thinking. And so in not being able to do that in the last couple of weeks, I've really reframed the way that I've been engaging with the team, my staff, the staff members of the commission on Zoom. And so literally last week, we went on an imaginary walk where I had everybody stand up and close their eyes and imagine that we were going to the park to meet my mom and my nephew. And so it's been, what are the possibilities for creativity and approaching the question of engagement creatively in this moment where so much is changing? There's so much opportunity, I think.
So Yazmany, your work has gone through several iterations since you came up with your first idea. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit with the audience today about how your work has evolved over time and how it's been to iterate with, in partnership with a city agency and its staff.
Great question. I think, it's been, as I said, a little bit of a roller coaster in that I've been learning so much about the way that the commission operates. There's a lot of what I've been absorbing through the process, where I've been so excited because there's been so many things where immediately there was the need for the artists to come in and show up and begin to build storytelling elements. And I'll give you an example. Already I worked with the language access team for the commission. And during the polls, during our November election, literally I designed tablecloths and buttons that were very large and bold and different colors that were color coded for the translators that were gonna show up at the different polling sites. And so a way of beginning to create an aesthetic around how language shows up in our public spaces. To me, it's like, how are we thinking about government in the city and what it does and how it connects to its people? In a way that's revolutionary, that's dynamic, that's a little bit uncomfortable, that makes us laugh a little bit. What are the emotional components of connecting to people in a way that's honest, that invites everybody to participate? So how is it that we begin to mix pleasure and beauty and joy into these processes so that we can continue to have democracy thrive, right?
Yazmany, pleasure, beauty, and joy. That's something that we need so much these days. And as I talk to you, it dawns on me that, if a commission that is about participation, of course, the artistic process that's gonna sort of enable that has to be participatory, performative, dialogic. So I cannot think of anybody better than you to be doing this work. And as we're talking, Edie, Shirley's eldest daughter shows up. How do you think how do you plan to engage, youth in a process like this?
It's such a great question. It's a part of the proposal that I made originally. I have been working with youth leadership in New York City for the past 4.5 years officially. What's really interesting is that what I've actually been working on this week is literally the People's Bus. And in my imagining, the People's Bus is a refurbished yellow school bus that is transporting us towards the future. In my imagining, it begins to really activate. So does it become an outdoor classroom? What are the possibilities for this thing to activate and become the People's Plaza or the People's Square, and a space that provides connectivity, that creates awareness, and that eventually leads to transformation? And when you think about it opening up, what does it do for the imagination when we have books in there from all of our cultures and languages that live in New York City? What does it do when we think about it being something that provides access to people who wouldn't have access to the internet or to a printer? I don't know, there's so many little things where I'm like, there's a lot of possibilities. And so we're really thinking about the logistics. But for me, the capacity of this thing to orient us and to help us orient the city and move us towards, I began thinking, could the programming for the first year of the People's Bus be the bus seeking out the values of the city? How does that metaphor begin to transform the way we think about the way we relate to each other, the way we connect to all of the people that we serve? I just think it's really, it's this distilling of so many of the things that I wanted to accomplish through all of the ideas that I've been playing with and thinking about with the staff and with the commissioner.
So Yazmany, I clearly we could talk to you for hours. You know, I thank you so much for the energy, the enthusiasm, the creativity, the love, the commitment that you bring to this residency and to our city. You're one of the many examples of, you know, how important our artists are to our city and to our lives. I cannot wait, and I look forward to see, you know, what your work leads you to. I can, you know, wait to hang out in one of those yellow buses and those people's plazas. And I look forward to connecting with you very soon. So Amanda, tell us a little bit, you know, what your work is about and what you have been working on lately.
Sure, absolutely. So I think it's probably a good context to know why I was compelled to take part in the PAIR program. I just wanted to be there for our city in the wake of the pandemic, like I think many creative people wanted to be. So from hospitalizations and crushing medical bills to all the layoffs and business closures and the pain of Asian faces vilified and Black bodies beaten, our city is in such urgent need for comfort and connection. And that's very much how I'm approaching this residency. So you asked what I have been up to this fall. Recently, I've co-created with the New York City Commission on Human Rights an art campaign that celebrates everything that Asian Americans have contributed to our city, from working the front lines as essential workers to building coalition with a Black Lives Matter movement. You know, it really just says that despite everything that we have been through, we are still here and fighting every day for our city and her people.
When you apply for the program, you had to choose the agency that you wanted to be in residency with. What moved you to work with the Human Rights Commission?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my art has always been about making the invisible visible. So from microbes and outer space, I've explored that, but I also think the struggles of communities of color are often invisible. So I kind of wanted to bring that lens to my work, and the Commission on Human Rights was just a natural partner for telling stories about, you know, the struggles of communities of color.
You have been extremely prolific as you work with the commission. You know, very early in the process, right? The residency starts, you know, in the summer. By fall, you already had, you know, a whole campaign. What's next? What are you looking forward to do for the rest of the year as part of the residency?
So we're continuing the work that we've started. So we've got a community mural coming up, as well as some installations that will go up in bus shelters and Link NYC kiosks, and some DOT display cases. But this next body of work I'm going to be tackling is kind of addressing this watershed moment of API youth sharing their stories of sexual assault and gender-based violence. I think especially in the API community, it's just, it's something that's difficult to talk about, and we want youth to have the space and the safety to tell their stories, but also receive support from folks in the community and their peers.
And Amanda, I love your campaign. I was almost moved to tears. I was holding back as we walk, both with the folks at the Commission of Human Rights and my colleagues at DCLA and you and people from the community. The day that the campaign was unveiled, really strong messages, but probably the one that stays with me the most is I still believe, and I get emotional. I still believe in our city, right? What are the things that make you still believe in our city?
You know, I still believe in our compassion. I still believe in our courage. I still believe in the care that we take to stand up for each other and fight for respect and dignity for all New Yorkers.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Gonzalo.